Hello everyone. Welcome back to Archo again. I hope you are all doing well. Tonight's story comes from Australia, sent to us by a man named Ethan Walker. He says this terrifying encounter happened to one of his close relatives, a park ranger named Daniel Miller. He wanted me to share this experience with you. And remember, if you have a true horror experience of your own, you can send it to us at archo.story@gmail.com. Now, let's get straight into the story. My name is Ethan Walker. I live near Sydney, Australia. The story I am about to tell you is not my own, but something that happened to my cousin, Daniel Miller. Daniel worked as a park ranger in a place called Blue Hollow National Park. By day, the park looked like paradise. Tourists came from everywhere, families camping, hikers taking photos, children laughing. Sunlight spilled across the tall eucalyptus trees, the sound of cockatoos filled the air, and the place felt alive. But at night, everything changed. As soon as the sun disappeared, the forest sank into an oppressive darkness. The sounds of birds faded, replaced by a haunting silence. The wind would weave through the trees, making them groan like they were in pain. The same forest that looked so welcoming by day became something sinister by night. Daniel often had night patrol shifts. At first, he told himself it was nothing unusual. This is just what the wild feels like at night, he thought. But soon, he began to notice things that went beyond the ordinary. One night, as he drove through the park, he heard it for the first time. A faint voice, somewhere in the distance, calling out. "Help, help." He froze. It was the unmistakable sound of someone in distress. He thought maybe a hiker had gotten lost after sunset. Daniel grabbed his flashlight and followed the sound into the trees. The voice stayed just ahead of him, always out of reach. Every time he thought he was close, it seemed to slip further away, deeper into the forest. Then suddenly, it stopped. The silence that followed was heavier than anything he had felt before. Daniel swept his flashlight across the trees. That's when he heard it, breathing. Deep, heavy, raspy breaths. It was right next to him, as though someone was standing inches away. But when he spun around with the flashlight, there was nothing. Heart pounding, Daniel hurried back to his vehicle. He slammed the door shut and tried to calm himself. But his blood turned cold when he looked at the windshield. Written across the fogged-up glass, clear as day, were the words, "Don't patrol at night." Daniel froze. Who could have written that? He was the only ranger on duty that night. From then on, things only got worse. Sometimes, he would glance into the distance and see another ranger standing beneath the trees, uniform, hat, flashlight. But Daniel knew the truth, no one else was scheduled to work the night shifts with him. He was alone. Sometimes, the radio would crackle to life with voices. Section C clear, moving forward. The first time he heard it, Daniel nearly dropped the radio. That channel had been deactivated years ago. No one should be transmitting on it. But the worst of all were the sightings. On more than one occasion, Daniel saw a figure walking through the forest, engulfed in flames. A man, burning from head to toe. Yet nothing around him caught fire. The grass, the trees, the dry leaves, it was as though the flames belonged only to him. Daniel told himself it was exhaustion, hallucinations brought on by long hours. But deep down, he knew it wasn't. One night, while patrolling, his vehicle stalled and died in the middle of the track. The forest around him filled with fog so thick he could barely see a few feet ahead. Then came the sound of footsteps, crunching leaves. Someone was approaching. Daniel stepped out with his flashlight. That's when he saw him. A ranger. But not like any he'd seen before. His uniform was torn and blackened. Half his body was burned, charred beyond recognition. His face was a melted ruin, and yet his eyes, his eyes glowed with a furious red fire. The figure stopped only a few feet away and whispered, in a voice that sounded like smoke and ash. "They killed me here, and they will kill you too." Before Daniel could move, the figure ignited in roaring flames, his entire body consumed in fire. And then, just like that, he vanished into thin air. The fog lifted. Daniel's car roared back to life without him even touching the key. Terrified, he jumped in and sped out of the park. The next morning, he went straight to the oldest ranger still working at the park, a man named Michael Thompson. Michael had been there for decades. Daniel recounted everything, his hands still shaking. Michael listened in silence, his expression grim. When Daniel finished, the old ranger sighed deeply. "You saw him, didn't you?" Michael said. Daniel frowned. "Saw who?" "Edward Harris," Michael whispered. "He used to be one of us. A ranger, years ago. He was one of the best, dedicated, fearless. Always put the park above himself." Michael's voice grew heavy as he continued. One night, he caught a group of drug dealers using the park as a hideout. He tried to stop them. They overpowered him. Beat him until he couldn't fight back. Then they dragged him deep into the woods, poured gasoline over his body, and set him on fire. They left him to burn alive in the dark. Daniel felt sick. Since that night, Michael said, this place has never been the same. People say they've seen him. A burning ranger, still patrolling, still doing his duty. Only now, his eyes are filled with rage. He wants justice. He wants revenge. Daniel never did another solo night patrol after that. But his nightmares began. Almost every night, he would dream of Edward. Sometimes, Edward would just stand there, burning, staring at him. Other times, his voice would echo through Daniel's head, whispering the same words again and again. "Finish what I couldn't, punish them." Daniel's mind began to unravel. He became jumpy, paranoid. Radios would crackle in the dead of night, even when they were switched off. His vehicle windows would fog up and reveal strange handprints pressed against the glass. He would catch glimpses of a burning figure in the reflection of his rearview mirror, only for it to vanish when he turned. One night, he swore he heard multiple voices in the forest. Shadows of men standing together, their outlines flickering as though they were made of smoke. He thought he saw cigarettes glowing in the darkness, red embers floating like fireflies. But when he got closer, they vanished. All that remained were blackened patches of earth, as though something had burned there long ago. Daniel realized something chilling. The spirit wasn't just showing itself. It was leading him somewhere. He demanded to know the truth from Michael. Where exactly did Edward die? Michael hesitated. His face went pale. "You don't want to know that," he said. But Daniel couldn't stop himself. He followed the signs. Every time the voice called, every time the flames flickered in the distance, he let it guide him. Until one night, he found himself standing in a clearing deep within Blue Hollow National Park. The ground there was different. The soil was darker, scarred. The trees around the clearing were half dead, their bark twisted and blackened. And the smell, charred wood and something else, something that made him gag. As he stood there, the air grew heavy. Then he heard it. Dozens of whispers, all around him. They circled him like a swarm. Over and over, the voices hissed the same word. Justice. Justice. And then he appeared. Edward Harris. The Burning Ranger. This time, Daniel didn't see a fleeting shadow. Edward stood before him in his full, horrifying form. Flames crawled across his body like living serpents, his skin cracked and peeling, his eyes glowing like twin furnaces. But he didn't attack. He simply raised one charred hand and pointed at Daniel. Daniel trembled. He realized what the spirit wanted. Edward wasn't looking for peace. He was demanding vengeance. Michael had been right. Edward Harris had never left the park. His duty bound him even after death. And now, his spirit burned, not just with fire, but with fury. Daniel never went back to that clearing again. But from that night on, he knew the truth. Blue Hollow National Park wasn't just haunted. It was cursed. The tourists who hiked there by day would never know. The families who camped under the stars would never see. But anyone who dared to patrol its dark paths alone at night, they would feel it. The presence. The heat. The unrelenting gaze of a ranger who refused to rest. Edward Harris still walks that forest. Still patrols the trails. Still burns. And if you ever find yourself in Blue Hollow National Park after dark, listen closely. You might hear his footsteps crunching behind you. You might see the glow of fire flickering through the trees. And if you're unlucky, you might hear his voice whisper in your ear. They killed me here, and they will kill you too.